All right, folks, it is Monday night. It is time for our live Q&A that we do every single week. So if you have drone questions, this is the place to be. So if you're new here, I'm going to answer as many drone questions as I can over the next 60 minutes or so. And so leave them in the comments. We have Jason in the back room over there that is going through all the comments and filtering them to me. And then we have Ethan behind the camera over there that's controlling everything, make sure everything is good. So welcome. Let me see who we have in the chat. I see quite a few people already. Richard Hooker is here. Hike and Fly. We have Joseph. Eric is here. Curtis, John. We have Danny, Dean Schaefer, Leo de Cordinas. From Merritt Island. That's awesome. Used to live very close to Merritt Island in Melbourne. And we have Rick Hone, Gus 450, Mountain Man, Bob Rock, Retired Fire Chief, always here. We have an OK Boomer, also here quite a bit. All Deadeye, Ralph Prowl. We have After Res Media, Chris, Jay Gilormini. We have Walter Zeransky, Dave DeVore, Avion, Lens Air. We have Arnaud from Tokyo. That's awesome. We have Daryl. We have Scott, Travis, Cheney. We have Doug, Don M, Joseph. Man, a lot of folks. Holy crapola. What did I stop? Jack, Steve A, Tim Voice, our friend Vic with the Drone Service Provider Alliance, BEM 1962, Max Saxon, formerly Film Photography, Black Tool, Peekaboo Drone Service, Chris Muncy, Daryl is here, our own Jillian from the community. Moon is here, Jim, Scotty, Adventure of Danny and DJI. A lot of folks. Well, welcome everyone. If you're new here, like I said before, and you missed my little intro, we're going to answer drone questions, so put them in the comments. In the meantime, few updates. What did we do today? We did quite a few things, but last week we recorded a ton of content, which should be out, some of it this week. We have a big video coming out with Vic, where we talked about the ANPRM from the Commerce Department. We have a little guide on how to submit your comment. We give you a bunch of ideas of things that you can probably mention in your response. So there's that. There's also a big news item that came out late last week. We just posted a short about it today. But the person that, and you've probably seen this already, but the person that hit the Super Scooper in California during the fire was found. Apparently they found him a while back and pleaded guilty. And so it was, after all, a drone. For all the doubters out there that thought that a drone can do that kind of damage, it actually can. And so the bottom line is be careful. Be careful when you fly out there, especially in situations like forest fires and a few other things. So, yeah. All right. I think that's all the big ticket items that we have to talk about. We'll have more news update. We have quite a few headlines already for this Friday. Daryl, let's get started with the question. Daryl says, what practice test do you recommend for Part 107? There's not a whole lot of practice tests. If you're not in our course, Daryl, we do have a full practice exam, which randomly selects from like 400 questions in our database. That's the one that I would recommend. There's unfortunately a lot of practice exams out there that have not been updated to the new regulation from 3 years ago. And a lot of these tests have incorrect questions. I have people emailing me on a regular basis saying, hey, how do you answer this question? And I said, well, this is not from our test, obviously. And either the answer is wrong, misleading, or doesn't apply to the drone test. I've seen that a lot. So that's my answer. Sorry, I'm sending you to a paid course, but if you want to succeed in this, our course is designed for this. Travis says, can someone with a learning disability get accommodations for the Part 107 test, like extra time? And what is the best Part 107 moneymaker to fly drones in the winter? Disability accommodation, yes, there is. I don't remember specifically if it's additional amount of time, but what it is they can provide you with someone who can read the question for you, and but they cannot give you any information or any hints, which you probably wouldn't want anyway, because most of the proctors are not pilots. They wouldn't even know what's on the test, but just something to keep in mind. Let's see, Russ is in the comments. I hope we get to that question very soon. Travis says, can someone... Okay, sorry, I just read that. Let me get a sip. For some reason, I did not drink today. And no, I'm not trying to pitch these brand new mugs from Pilot Institute, but because they're not for sale yet. But we have... It's like 70 degrees outside. In the early February, which is kind of crazy. Although we've seen this before in the past, where we have like a couple weeks of just spring, early spring in the middle of winter. It's like what we call the first fall spring. And then all of a sudden it turns back into snow and shenanigans. But today and yesterday at my house, the windows were open, bright open the entire day, kids playing outside in t-shirts. My wife said the kids were playing all day today outside as well. So we'll take it as much as we can. And okay, next question. Jack says, if I slap a remote ID on a 249 gram drone, can I still use it under Part 107? Yes, you can. Keep in mind that 249 grams doesn't really mean much of anything under Part 107, other than the fact that it could qualify as a Category 1 drone. But really, other than that, there's no registration exception with 249 gram drones under Part 107. So yeah, it doesn't really mean much. Black Tool says highest altitude you can fly, 400 feet above ground level in most places in the country. More limited when you get closer to airports is the answer. Question, if I'm recording a location like a river and I'm recording a house far away unintentionally, do I need to delete that video recording? No, you don't. You can record houses. What you should try to avoid doing is obviously flying too close to windows. You don't want to be recording what's happening inside of a house, but just getting a house from a distance is not a problem at all. Jim says, are you going back to Sun and Fun again this year? Yep, absolutely. We actually just... talked about booking the tickets today. We have our hotel for the whole week. We're going to have 7 people, I think, at the show. 5 people initially, and then 2 more people coming in later during the week. So yeah, we'll be there. We'll be at Oshkosh as well. Those are the 2 big airplane shows that we do every year. And Oshkosh, pretty sure we have the hotel as well already, because that goes so quickly. We came back from Oshkosh to tell you how crazy these shows are. We came back from Oshkosh and we waited like 2 weeks before we booked a hotel. And most of them in Oshkosh were already taken. So we have to drive like a solid half hour to get out of town to get to a hotel that's not $500 a night, which is crazy. Steven says, what's the difference between Part 61 schools and Part 141? Although that's an airplane question, not a drone question, but I'll still answer it. Part 141 schools, so this is if you're going to do flight training for airplane or helicopter training. Part 141 schools have a curriculum that has been approved by the FAA. And what it means is that in that curriculum, the flight schools said, in lesson 1, we're going to do all of these items. In lesson 2, we're going to do all of these items. In lesson 3, and so on and so forth. And then you have like 30, 40 lessons in the syllabus. And that has been approved as the path that the flight school has to follow to train pilots. Now you'd say, why would you want to do that? You want to do that because of that, the FAA tells you that the minimum number of hours required to become a pilot is less under Part 141 than it would be under Part 61. Now, Part 61 is like Part 107 for drones. It's kind of the area that defines what it takes to become a pilot. And under Part 61, there are a certain number of hours to become a private pilot, for example. So let's say private pilot, for example, 40 hours to become a private pilot under Part 61, only about 35 hours under most Part 141 approved curriculum. So in theory, you could save 5 hours by going to that school. At the end of the day, for private pilot, it doesn't make a big difference because most people go over these hours anyway. It's advantageous when you get to become a commercial pilot. Under Part 61, it's 250 hours total time. Under Part 141, it's 190 hours. So you can save potentially up to 60 hours by doing it under 141. So that's the main difference. I don't know that I want to go into more details than that, but Stephen, if you're looking to become a pilot, we have a free course. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Pilot. And in that, I actually answer that specific question. And I answer a ton of questions that we get all the time for becoming a pilot. And it's free. It's free, available on our course. Maybe Jason can put a link in the description. Okay, next. I live in the DC area. It's a no-flight zone, and geozone was removed. On the website, it says that you can fly under some circumstances, but then I contacted the FAA and they said that I can't fly there. So the DC area is interesting. There's two zones. There's a zone closer to Washington, D.C. itself, where you cannot fly at all unless you have very specific permissions. And then there's a zone outside of that where you can follow regular rules and fly by getting a LANC approval. So find out where you are in that area. If you're in the inner zone, then you cannot fly unless you go through some paperwork. So yeah. It will be difficult for you if you're inside that zone. But yes, unfortunately, this is a byproduct of DJI removing those geozones. The FAA Drone Zone put out a message a couple of days ago telling people to stay away from the crash area in DC. And of course, more and more people now, because the geozone has been removed on DJI. In the past, they couldn't fly in that area at all. And now they see the restriction lifted, so they think, well, maybe I can go fly. And no, you can't. You still cannot go fly in there. So I know people said there were a lot of negatives about having these DJI fly zones, but I will continue to argue that it was stopping a lot of people that were ignorant about airspace approval, and I'm still a bit worried about all of this. Question from 51 Drones. Russ says, will Billy Cal ever be as good a pilot as Greg? It's a good question. Billy is quite the pilot. He's a very cinematic pilot. That's for sure. I don't know that I would want to go against him. Billy's a good guy. So is Russ. All right. So if I take pictures and videos as a recreational operator, and then I get my Part 107, can I use those pictures and videos for commercial use? Yes, the answer is yes. The FAA has kind of explained all of that. William Young says, had a seagull establish dominance on my Avata 2. That sucks. Put it in a lake. That really sucks. Do I have to report to the NTSB? I didn't recover it. No, you don't have to. This is not one of those incidents that... So think about what the NTSB wants to hear about. The NTSB wants to hear about when something happened that, if it continues to happen, let's say a flight control failure, for example, and it continues to happen over and over again, and it gets reported over and over again to the NTSB, then they're going to want to they're going to want to investigate that. You have to think back about what the NTSB did historically with these reports. Is they did it on the manned aircraft side of things. So they want to know about these things when it's something substantial enough that it has an effect on other people. Same for the FAA, quite frankly. The FAA wants to know about all of that. My local parks say they are no flight zone, but one of my local park has a FRIA or FRIA. Does that mean I can fly there, and is this for commercial reasons? So the FRIA is a FAA Recognized Identification Area, which is a weird name for it, but they had to make an acronym. It's a place where you can fly without having remote ID. Technically, it's a place where there's more than likely a club, an organized club that meets in that area to go fly. So more than likely, that local park is you're allowed to fly your drone there. I hope that makes sense. So it's not really for commercial reasons. That has really nothing to do with that. It's just a place where you can technically fly without remote ID. What are your thoughts on Airspace Link and AirHub Portal? I'm just going to say that I recommend using Aloft Air Control. I have some reservation that I will keep private on Airspace link, but doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using it. It's just putting it this way. Christopher Muncie says, still waiting for the polo shirts. No polo shirts. I think this is just a company policy for me. These polo shirts are for employees only. I don't really want people out there not pretending to be Pilot Institute employees, but just these shirts look very official and I don't want them in the general public. So you can only get them if you're a Pilot Institute employee. You can get the polo shirt that says graduate underneath it, that looks very much like this, if you score 100 on the written exam. That's the only way to get a polo shirt with the Pilot Institute logo. Yeah. Leo de Cardona says, I want to fly in class Delta airspace. Lance is not available, so I need to submit a request through the drone zone. The grid altitude is 400 feet. Is a request for approval less than 90 days reasonable? Yes. It should be. In this case, what they're going to do, what I would do when I submit that airspace request, I would click the wide area authorization checkbox that you'll see in there somewhere on the page. And what that's going to do is going to help you. They'll give you approval to fly anywhere in that airspace as long as you stay below the grid minimums. Very much like you would get for a Lance approval, except it would be for the entire airspace. And no, if the airport is Lance approved, you cannot get this kind of approval, the wide area authorization. But if it's a non-Lance participating airport, they will more than likely give it to you, which is very, very useful. Next, Walter says, I'm looking to get a decent drone. I've been looking at DJI products. I'm thinking about a Mavic or a Matrice. I'm worried about the potential ban looming. Any recommendations? Let me get a sip first. I need to put a straw in this thing. Let's see. So the potential ban around the corner, I don't think anybody should be worried about purchasing a DJI drone today with the ban. None of the ban text that we have seen would ban current existing drone. They would only ban future models. So if anything, stocking up on DJI drones now, if there is a ban that ever happened, at least you would have the latest version available and you wouldn't be left behind. So that's it. As far as Matrice versus Mavic, depends on what you want to do. The Matrice is more of an enterprise type of drone. The Mavic is more of a prosumer level drone. So it depends on what you want to do. I'm a pilot who hasn't flown in over 5 years. I want to get my Part 107, but your video says your course is not intended for private pilot. Do you have a class for people like me? So when we say the course is not intended for private pilots, it's more about the fact that if you are a private pilot and you're current, then you can get the certificate through an easier method. I don't want to sell you a course, have you go through all this, pay for the test, and then you realize later that you could have done it for free, because that is the case if you are current. Now, you say you haven't flown in 5 years, so you're no longer current, in which case the course is more than likely appropriate for you. There will be a few sections that you might find boring. I don't know how long ago you get your certificate, but it might actually be a good review. The whole regulation section is actually very appropriate even for private pilot because it's different. It's not something you've seen before. And the whole airspace section is quite frankly different as well. So is the sectional section, because the map section, because it's different than what you've learned as a private pilot. So just for these two things and everything else that's around it, that's very geared towards drone pilots, it's probably a good investment if you're not as sharp as you would be if you were current, if that makes any sense. Next up, Old Man Droning says, have you ever got a drone stuck in a tree? What did you do? We did not. I hit trees twice, one with the Avata original and one with the Mini 2, I want to say. It's going backwards and I hit a tree. It fell down to the ground. The Avata fell down into the snow. So that was safe. Didn't break anything. No, we never get one in a tree. What would you do? If you have another drone, you could try to put a dropper system on it to drop a rope and then try to attach it. You can take off with something dangling from the other drone and try to hook it off. hire a tree cutting service that will come and get your drone down. A lot of people have done that. Maybe somebody else has recommendations out there, but yeah. Wait, we have a drinking music. Can we try it? Let's see if it works. That's a 10. Jesse will appreciate that joke. Okay. That was funny. So yeah, tree stuck in a drone. Drone stuck in a tree. Yeah, maybe hire somebody, a landscaping company or something. That sucks. Regardless of how you do it, it sucks. I'm sorry to hear. What is the preferred strobe light for an Air 3S and best mounting location? I noticed some strobe lights attached to the arm, but it seems that would cause an imbalance to the drone. Depending on the Air 3S, I don't think adding a strobe light would really create any imbalance. Keep in mind, the strobe light is designed for you to be seen by other aircraft that are higher than you. The strobe light is really designed for manned aircraft, helicopters, airplanes that are flying in the airspace, so they can see that there is another aircraft at lower altitude sharing the airspace. So putting it on the arm really only helps you as the pilot to identify the drone. So I would just put it on top. Personally, I would put it on top of the battery because then it's not on top of the GPS compartment. If your drone has a design where the battery kind of slides in, but that would, slides in or clips in, then you can put a piece of Velcro on top of all your batteries, or a piece of Velcro on top of that part of the drone that has the strobe, that the battery compartment, and then you should be good to go. So, yeah, that's what I would say. I'm trying to read the comments to see. Groovy. All right, groovy. Who says groovy? Jillian says groovy. I see you at Sun and Fun this year. Awesome, Jim. Looking forward to it. I'll be working as one of the official photographer again this year. Well, I think you came in last year. I remember meeting you. Whirlybird Ops says, looking at FPV, but can't afford the Avata 2 right now. I have a Mini 4 Pro. Any experience flying the Mini 4 Pro with the Goggle 3? A good start. I have not. I don't think we've tested flying those goggles with any non-FPV drones. So unfortunately, I can't help you there. It's going to be different. I mean, the Mini 4 does not fly like an FPV drone, so don't expect too much. That's what I would say, I guess. MD Blue says, can you own one single drone set of Neo and choose when you fly it recreational or under Part 107? What would be the correct process for this? Yes, you can. Absolutely. So what you would do in this case is not much, quite frankly, is decide before you take off which set of rules you're going to follow and then stick with them. It's really that simple. Keep in mind, you can fly recreationally by following Part 107 rules. Remember, these are sets of rules. Recreational exemption is a set of rules. Part 107 is a set of rules. Part 107 doesn't say that you have to fly for non-recreational purposes. It just says that you fly your drone. So you can fly your drone recreationally. I'll give you the example. I have, to my knowledge, never flown under recreational rules ever. Because when Part 107 first came out, I get my Part 107 within the month that it came out. And that's it. That's all the rules I ever followed after this. So if I film my kids at the park when they're playing, or if I go fly with my kids, I follow Part 107 rules because to me, they're just easier. So, but if you wanted to switch between the two, just remember which set of rules you're flying and keep following these rules. And that's really it. If you're flying under Part 107, the Neo needs to be registered. That's the only real difference. And it needs remote ID, I should add. So you need to put a module on it. Sorry, multiple answers. Nate says, can under 18 fly drones like the Air 3S with a license? So a license is a big word. The FAA has the remote pilot certificate or license, drone license, if you want to call it. That is available as soon as you are 16 or somebody is 16. You can fly recreationally using what do you call it? Trust, taking the trust exam at any age. So that's what I would recommend. Trust is not a certificate or a license, although trust is a certificate of completion, very different from a pilot certificate, if the nuance makes sense, I hope. Anthony says, are they still holding drones up in customs? Yes, unfortunately, we heard that they are continuing to do that. If you want to buy a drone, I would recommend buying it from a local reseller, either a big box store or one of the drone resellers that is out there. Then you don't have to worry about customs. They had to worry about it initially. What current customer drone have TCAS, ACAS built into it as a feature? I know TCAS and ACAS is the kind of the key buzzword right now because a lot of folks in the media have talked about it after the accident. To be clear, TCAS is a collision avoidance system that is on board of large aircraft where these systems talk to each other and give the pilot indication of what they should do next. This is nothing that has nothing to do with drones. So there are no drones that have TCAS or ACAS. Neither will there ever be drones that have TCAS or ACAS unless they're very, very, very large drones. But that's not the point. The point of TCAS and ACAS is not to do that. So what you might be talking about is how to find if there is an aircraft in the area that's ADSB, the technology that airplanes have on board or helicopters have on board is called ADSB, which is a signal that sends the location of the aircraft to ground station, and then other users in the airspace can pick that up. That is available on drones where we can get that ADSB signal from other aircraft in the area and get notification. DJI has that standard. Autel has it standard on their newer drones. And it's a great way to find that there is another user in the airspace that's pretty close to you. So that's kind of the idea. Okay, sorry, I'm reading the comments at the same time. I want to make sure that I answer these questions, and there's no additional questions. Snowcat Cowboy, well, that is quite the name, got a clarification from the FAA that a medical certificate is no longer required unless you're flying at night. Can you confirm? Wait. Okay, so none of that is correct. I don't know if you're talking about drones or airplanes, so I'm going to answer both questions. There's no need for a medical certificate if you're flying drones, period. Day or night, recreational, under Part 107, there's no medical certificate required. As far as flying airplanes or helicopters or anything manned, then you need to have at least a medical certificate, I'm going to say, or equivalent, but yes. So that's the answer. But yeah. The recreational practice area is 4.7 miles from a controlled airport. Check lengths, auto approval available up to 300 feet, further coordination available to 400. Translation. Translation means that if you submit an airspace request today to fly in that area up to 300 feet, you will get approval within seconds. Once you click submit, you'll get a text message that says you're good to go. If you want to fly above 300, between 300 and 400 feet in that area, you will need to submit further information to the FAA. That might take a few days to get approval for it. So I hope that clears it up. How long does it take for me to get my FAA Part 107 license? It depends on how quickly you want to study, but I would plan for 20 to 30 hours of study time total. If you take our course, you can probably do it in 2 to 3 weeks if you're dedicated. You can go quicker. Some people have done it quicker, but there's also quite a bit of information to ingest. So depends on how much time you have, probably how old you are, how long it's been since you've studied a topic. If you're a younger person that's out of school or in school, it's probably not that big of a deal. If you're somebody older, it might take you a little bit longer. So everybody is different. Everybody learns differently. Oh yeah, thank you, Vic, for adding this. the question from Ibata 425. You cannot request to fly over 300 feet unless you are Part 107 certified. You need to be a remote pilot in order to request flying above 300 feet. I didn't even think about that. Daniel says, about to purchase my first thermal drone. Which would you suggest between the Matrice 4T, the Matrice 30T, keeping in mind this would be used for photogrammetry and 3D modeling as well? You can't really go wrong with either or. Let me just say this. So a little bit of confusion on my part maybe. A thermal drone, unless you're going to be doing thermal photogrammetry, sorry, I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. Thermal photogrammetry is pretty rare. So my guess is that you want to do mostly photogrammetry and 3D modeling, in which case I would recommend to get the Matrice 4 Enterprise, not the thermal version. If you have a need for thermal capabilities, then that's different. I would definitely get probably a 4T. The Matrice 30 model is designed more for public safety. It's more of a rugged drone, like something that's designed to be waterproof, to be used outside, to be beat up, to be it's just a little bit bigger. But just for pure photogrammetry and 3D modeling, Matrice 4 Enterprise, thermal if you need to add the thermal, but the camera will be better on the Enterprise to do photogrammetry. The camera on the thermal is not as good as the camera on the non-thermal on the Enterprise version. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I see Jared is in the house. So cool. Jared is our mapping expert, and he has cool stickers. About to purchase my first... I just answered that, you dum-dum. Okay, next. I wanted to take videos of a street sign in the middle of a street where cars drive by. Would this be legal? You cannot fly your drone over people in moving vehicles. So if you wanted to take a video of a street sign, I would either wait until the street is not as busy or have somebody to help you identify that there is a car coming. But I would do it between cars passing by, if that makes sense. Do not fly over cars. That can be pretty dangerous and it's a lot of liability. What would be the first DJI release in later 2025? Mini 5 Pro, Mavic 4 Pro, Avata 3. Now, this is just me making this up, okay? I would say probably the Mavic 4 is going to be the next model that we see, simply based on the number of leaks that we have seen. We actually just talked about this morning. Unfortunately, if you are in premium community, we don't have a post-flight video this week because we had a massive failure of audio, and we decided to scrub the whole post-flight. So apologize for that, but yeah, we had a failure of the main source and a failure of the backup. So this really wasn't meant to happen. It's probably because I get mad at someone in the recording. Luke says, I'm here in Arizona, and the park is McQueen Park in Gilbert. It's not a Maricopa County list, but it has the FRIA, which is confusing. Yeah, see if you can, Luke, take a look and see if you can find out who is in charge of the FRIA. My guess is that it's probably the AMA, which means that it's probably an AMA field, which sadly... likely, I'm saying likely a lot because I don't know for sure, likely requires to have a membership to join because that's what the AMA has been doing. So that would suck. And in most cases, the AMA doesn't really care for multi-rotors. That's not true everywhere, but I think in general, that's a true statement. Is it near impossible to get a waiver to fly in a national park, say Yellowstone? Yes. Unless you have a really good reason to do it, and it's sponsored by the national park itself, or if you're doing some sort of a documentary for Netflix or whatever, yes, it's going to be nearly impossible. My flight problems are always light reflections on my phone screen. I can't see. Any suggestion for me, like a tablet or other device? Yes, they sell little sunshade that you can put on your phone around your controller. I would recommend maybe getting one of the, I don't know if you fly a DJI drone or not, but maybe getting one of the DJI RC controller. The RC2 has a great visibility even in the bright sun, and then putting an additional screen on top of an additional shade on top of it. That would be my recommendation. Is there a drone club or meetup group in Mesa, Gilbert, Arizona? Not sure, Ralph, but if you're a student in one of our courses, we have a really cool community with like 60,000 people in it. And we have a section in there that's by region. We don't have it by state. We used to, but we've combined it into regions. And you can post something and see if anybody else lives in the area. And Jillian, no, never mind. Can you fly near or over railway yards? Yes. Be careful where you take off from. If you take off from land owned by the railway companies, they might not be too excited about it because it's their private property and they can say you can't take off and land from here. Be careful not to fly over people in moving vehicle. A train is a moving vehicle. So if there are people inside of the cars or inside of the, whatever you call the thing in the front. Sorry, my vocabulary for railroad stuff is not really great. The main car, I know the caboose, but that's not it. That's the opposite of the caboose. Yeah. So yeah, be careful not to fly over people in moving vehicles. Nana says, when do I get my license in the mail? Typically within 90-ish days, roughly. It depends. My guess is that with everything that's been going on with the federal government recently, we might see a little bit of delay building up into those licenses. But from what I've seen in the past, it's about 90 days. Your temporary certificate is valid for 120 days, but you can use that to fly absolutely legally. Jared says, how should we price used drones for sale? Ooh, that is a tough one because it's really a market-based thing, right? It's not like we have a Kelly Blue Book of you have so many flight hours and here's the overall drone shape and here's the model and here's how much it should be. It's very much based on what are other people selling it for. I mean, the right price is the one that somebody is willing to pay for it, right? So I don't know. That's a good one, Jared. Maybe you have tips or recommendations, but I don't know. Ooh, I see threat assessment discussions in here. Maybe I haven't gotten to that question yet. Okay. Where is your go-to ground? What is your go-to ground camera? Well, it depends. So in the studio, we have Blackmagic 6K cameras that we use for everything that we do. We somewhat recently changed to those about a year ago. Until then, we were using Panasonic GH5, GH5S, and S5 as ground cameras. I've been a Panasonic guy before, I'm going to sound pretentious. I've been a Panasonic guy before Sony was cool. But I do have to say Sony has great cameras. So I would look at either Sony Alpha series camera or Panasonic GH6. It depends on what you want to do. Love Panasonic, love the menu system in Panasonic, although Sony has gotten a lot better with their menus now, choosing options and stuff. And I don't like the autofocus system for Panasonic. It is far better in Sony. So I think you can go wrong today with any cameras out there. But right now, I would recommend either Panasonic or Sony for video cameras. That I should say that. For photography cameras, I still believe the old Canon and Nikon rivalry is there. Those two camera systems are amazing. Both of them have amazing glass lenses that, we use Blackmagic cameras with a lot of Canon lenses. So that should tell you something. Canon glass to me is just out there. And so is Nikon, quite frankly. I don't believe Canon and Nikon have gotten on the videography bandwagon as much as Sony and Panasonic have over the years. So it depends on what you want to do. I see Vic saying Nikon. I know Vic is a Nikon guy because he's a photographer primarily. But yeah, Ethan? Nikon bought Red. Wow, interesting. Yeah, but Red is a different ballpark. Not for us mere mortals. I'm not MKBHD. So, anyways. But yeah, you know what? It's one of these things. I really don't think you can go wrong. I think you'll find things that are annoying with either of these brands, any of these brands. Just like you can't go wrong with getting an Apple phone or getting an Android phone. It depends on what ecosystem you live in and what you want, what you like better, quite frankly. It is what it is. And I know I make fun of Android all the time, but not all the time. But it's because I like my ecosystem. It's all about the ecosystem. Okay, I'll get off of that. Formerly Film Photography says, during my night flights, I, of course, use an anti-collision light using flashing white. I have the internal light set to turn off when recording. I might still in compliance. The internal light? What's the internal light? As long as you have the anti-collision light, you're good. There's no other requirement for anything else. I'm guessing you're talking about the lights on the motors, the status lights. Those can be turned off. Yes, absolutely. When flying over a canyon deeper than 400 feet, do I have to descend into the canyon wider than 400 feet, than 800 feet? So keep in mind, I know what you're referring to there, Roll, which is the 400 feet within 400 feet of a man-made structure. A canyon is not a man-made structure. It's not an obstacle. So to the eyes of the FAA, that rule does not apply. I know what you're talking about because we have a lot of those here at West where you could be flying at the top of a cliff and all of a sudden you have a canyon that's 400 feet deep and you can be right at the edge right here at eye level, and all of a sudden, as soon as you step over that canyon, in theory, according to the FAA, you're in violation. If the canyon is 800 feet deep, then you're 800 feet above the ground at that stage. Use common sense, okay? I'm not telling you to break the rules. Use common sense when doing this kind of stuff. Make sure you still have visibility. Make sure you can still see everything that's going on around you, and then use your best judgment in this case. There's a reason why the FAA has this 400 within 400 rule. I do believe the spirit of the regulation is because there is some acknowledged level of protection being within a tall object that other manned aircraft are not going to be nearby. Now with canyon, you have to be careful because I'll take the example of Sedona, for example. There's a lot of helicopters that are flying tours in Sedona below the top of canyons, inside of canyons, below the highest point of the canyon. And if you flew your drone right there and descended, it doesn't guarantee that you would be safe from hitting a manned aircraft, aka a helicopter. So that's why I said use your best judgment when you do this. And just fly smart. So yeah, technically, no, you can't really fly over and up anything that's taller than a 400-foot cliff. Again, use your judgment to evaluate the height of an object. And yeah. That's all I can say legally, because I can't tell you to break the rules, but I'm just saying use common sense. I doubt anybody at the FAA would disagree with me on that one. Okay. Peekaboo says, when the FAA says to stay 2,000 feet away from infrastructures, does that include bridges? The FAA doesn't really... Well, critical infrastructures is one of these sore point, right? So how can I say this? I know the FAA is watching. I don't want to hurt their feelings. No, the critical infrastructure thing is left to the states at the moment. So the states have leeway in deciding how far you can be from critical infrastructures and what is a critical infrastructure, let's put it this way. So check to see what your state says about this. I have not seen a state right now that says that a bridge is a critical infrastructure unless I'm missing something. But yeah, that's kind of the point. So the reason I say the FAA is slacking in a way that they need to pass this one mandate that was given to them in the previous FAA Reauthorization Act, which is Section 2209. And in Section 2209, they were mandated to define what is a critical infrastructure so that each state can't really decide what it is. So that's where we're at. Is it going to happen? I would not take any wages on that, on the fact that it's going to happen. I don't even know what happens. I don't think there are any consequences if the FAA does not complete something that was mandated by them, by Congress, in the previous Reauthorization Act. Although that's technically what reauthorizes them to operate the next time. So I don't know. I don't know what the consequences are. Stella says, my Pilot Institute registration stickers expired. Where can I get new ones? You can email us. Now keep in mind, your certificate, your registration sticker technically is good forever. We do put an expiration on there that says when your registration with the FAA expired. You could take a Sharpie and just put a new expiration number on there if you wanted to. I know it doesn't look the best, but as long as you re-registered your drone, it should be the same registration number, just the expiration date is different. But you can email us, we'll send you a new set. Previous Reauthorization Act 2016. Yeah, 2016. Well, that's the previous one before the oh, was it really 2016? Holy crap, yeah, it was, you're right. Well, then it's definitely not happening. Sorry. I'm about to take the 107 test, but maybe moving shortly after. Should I wait to get my new address or just do an address change after the test? That's a good question. What might happen is that if you do an address change, it likely is not going to change where they send your certificate. So, and then if you do an address change with the post office, I don't think it's valid for that long. What is it called? A mail forward? I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, you can always, even if they send a card to the wrong place, you can always ask for a replacement. I think it costs $2. I don't know that I would wait to take the test just because of that. If your knowledge is fresh, just go take it. I'm guessing you don't know your new address. I don't know if you can send it to your parents or a family member that's not moving anytime soon. I don't know. That's, yeah. I'm sure you can try to contact them after you move before they process your final thing. And then just tell them, hey, I'm moving addresses and send it to that address. I think if you update your address in IACRA, it might work. You know who's going to know? UAS Help Desk. UAS Help at fa.gov. Send them an email. I bet you they'll know. They're great people working in that area, in that department. Okay. I see there's discussions going on. I saw there was a discussion about TSA earlier, but I don't know what question it was about. So, the security threat assessment. Yeah, TSA does a security threat assessment, but I don't know who Wolfpack was talking to. All right. Can my wife fly her DJI Neo over people she has done trust? Nope. Nobody can fly over, no recreational flights can be done over people, not even with a NEO or a small drone. There's no flying over people for recreational pilots, period. You have to be Part 107 to do that, and you have to do it with a categorized drone or with a waiver. Oh, there you go. USPA change of address, mail forwarding is good for 6 months. There you go. Thanks, Todd. I thought it was 100. I thought it was 90 days. So perfect. Then I would definitely recommend doing that. Take your test, put your address, and then do a mail forward, and then you'll be good. Question: another drone was in my area, and cops were notified. The airport of a drone that I guess put a code in to go through a geozone. Was the other pilot flying without a lance approval? Ooh, that is a... Okay, let me wrap my head around this. So, I mean, I don't have a way to tell if they had lance approval. The geozone thing with DJI, which they used to have, they changed that now where you don't need to get full approval. You just basically check a box and say go. That is not the same as getting FAA approval. So if they were, flying near an airport, then if the airport was in airspace that requires authorization, then they should have gotten lance approval. That's all I can say. JG's Garage and Unboxing says, I have an Atom LT with an anti-collision light and a remote ID module. Would this be too heavy for the drone due to the weather? I haven't flown it yet. I am not familiar with that model, unfortunately. If it's 250 gram-ish, 0.55 pounds, half a pound, then you're going to be okay. If it's much lighter than that, I would be cautious. But in this case, I don't know, maybe somebody in the team can look up how much this thing weighs. I'm not familiar with that model. Learning to fly in liftoff sim. I don't know what that is. Should I start in acro mode even if I plan on flying more indoor for videos with a GoFilm 20? Ooh. Oh, in the simulator, liftoff sim in the sim. I mean, you can start flying in acro mode if you want. It might be a big step at first. You might want to maybe transition into that, over time. As far as are those skills going to transfer to the future when you're flying indoors? Maybe. It depends on the type of filming that you want to do indoors. Flying indoor, typically from what I've seen in a smaller house, it's probably better to have something that's GPS stabilized, or at least that has altitude hold and doesn't decide to go in whatever direction if you don't put any inputs in the controller. So yeah, that's kind of my answer. Sorry, it might be a little bit vague, but I'm going to read this comment. It says, Mark K, a lot of state and local entities call something critical infrastructure, but the FAA regulates airspace, and unless it's on the 99.7 list, you can fly there. Yeah. So yes, thank you. That's a great answer from Wolfpack, which I'm not surprised. He knows his stuff. Yes, every state decides what a critical infrastructure is. So the FAA continues to regulate the airspace. We have to keep that in mind for sure. Not that they won't try to regulate the airspace illegally or against the FAA's authority, but that's not the same. ADSB DJI Air called AirSense. Yes, the technology inside of DJI that captures the ADSB signal from manned aircraft is called AirSense. Are there any alternative apps to operate our current DJI drone if the Fly app was to be blocked for any reason? Yes, there are other options. You can fly with a loft air control, for example. They have a full thing that controls the drone that way. I don't know why the DJI Fly app would be blocked. I'm guessing maybe you're thinking along the lines of TikTok, how TikTok was blocked for a mere 12 hours and everybody lost their mind. I don't know that this would be an avenue for them to prevent DJI from flying in the United States. So one more segment to our sponsor, the cup that's not available for sale. So it's a test, by the way. We're testing these, and it's really good. The water test really watery. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, folks. If you have more questions, I think I get to the bottom of the list finally. Answer a lot of questions again today. I'm glad you guys are all coming, guys and girls and everybody else is coming here to ask you questions. This is every week. If we can just remove confusion from one person, it's a win for me. We see a lot of confusion about drones in the media in general because everybody's an expert and everybody's trying to get their 5 minutes of fame by talking to the media when they have no business being there, and then spreading misinformation, unfortunately. So be careful when you hear information online. That should go without saying, but not everything that is being said, even on large mainstream media, is correct. So yeah, I don't know if I should end it on this. Litchi might work as a DJI alternative for some models. I haven't used Litchi in a long time. I used to use it all the time when the DJI original Mavic came out. Some of the first few videos I did were Litchi tutorials. So that was a good app. I did a couple of videos where I had pre-recorded movements with Litchi, where I was running up a hill in the Prescott Dells, not far from here, which was beautiful. And yeah, it was really cool. Really cool to animate. That was like cool waypoints before DJI or anybody else had them embedded into the software. So that was cool. Yep, not everything you see on the internet is true. Abraham Lincoln said that. I remember when he said that. Okay, well, I think it's a good time to end it. We have a couple of videos coming out later this week, so keep an eye on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, click subscribe. I mean, you get notification. I know the way the algorithm works. You still see our videos if you watched them in the past, but it does help us if you subscribe, and we have more people. It helps the algorithm, so it supports us, it supports you, it supports the industry, because we get to reach more people and tell them, spread the gospel of safe flying, if you want to see it that way. So I have one more question here from Ty. Any tips on how to not look like a criminal while out flying? I usually try to engage with people who come around, but also prefer to stay away from them. Yeah, it's interesting. You can be extremely visible. Put a vest. Put one of these. I know some people think they look stupid. That's a matter of opinion. They don't look super stylish. Put a vest and a hard hat on, and I almost guarantee you nobody's gonna come to mess with you. Put a bunch of cones around your car. You look like you're official, and then just let it slide. Or get your job done quickly by hiding, but also hiding might make you look like a criminal. So I don't know, but yeah, high-vis vest, hard hat. Look like a doofus if you want, but it's very efficient. And yeah, cones. Cone off the area. How many times have you driven by like a vehicle that looks somewhat official that has cones set up, and you never look at them twice? It's just part of the landscape. It's almost like the camouflage vest of being out in public. So, all right, that's all we got. Thanks for watching. We will see you on Friday for news update, and maybe even before that when we release the next video. So, fly safe.